thanks everybody for coming. I'm pretty happy to be in Finland because it's one of the few places that people can pronounce my name properly. I also go by Harry in case you cannot do that, but anyhow, okay. So, let me start my presentation with this slide that provides an overview of the technology vendors that are active in the IoT domain. Lower part you can see mostly enablers, building blocks for IoT services and products. But mostly on the upper part, there are vendors that build IoT commercial devices in the different domains, home automation, office automation, lifestyle wearables, and things like that. You can find it online, but feel free to take photos as well. This report was released a few days ago by the Telegraph, mentioning that the market adoption in the IoT, specifically for home automation, it's not working. I mean, really, people are not interested in buying things like connected lights or thermostats or other things. However, they do enjoy buying wearables. So probably receiving notifications on your wrist or tracking your steps is very interesting and appealing. While, yeah, like a connected fork or being able to control your house lights for your smartphone doesn't really make much sense, right? So one would say, you know, IoT is not doing very well yet, but it's not true. And my personal belief is that very soon you're gonna go and buy commercial devices and appliances for your house, and they will be already connected. Someone wrote there that my smart TV is not connected to the internet, so I'm okay with my privacy. Well, guess what? In a few years, maybe even less, you won't be asked to configure your smart appliance to the internet. We have the technology today. There are the low-range, low-power networks like LoRa and Sigfox, and all it will take is just plugging the device, and it will start sending data to the internet, to the vendor's cloud right away. Why? Of course, there is benefit, right? I mean, it's all about the data. We've been hearing it since yesterday and today. There were many talks and presentations, and there are figures about numbers and projections about, you know, the value of data for the IoT. So I didn't bother putting any of that stuff on my slides. You can find it online, but you know, it's a big deal for vendors. They can make a lot of money by getting data and controlling things like maintenance, promoting things, and enabling new services. And they don't make any money from the hardware, that's for sure, at least the big guys. Amazon is selling this Wi-Fi enabled button for $5. $5. And you click and it orders some tissues directly, right away. Now it's not connected, fortunately, I can click it as many times as I want. But you know, I mean, they don't make money out of this. Probably they even you know, pay to get it on your hands. It's the service they enable, and not just the service of selling the things, but the fact that they can collect data about how often you need these things and when, right? So, yeah, I'm afraid that in the near future, everything that we're gonna buy will start bleeding or leaking data to the internet right away without us controlling it or knowing it. And I mean, yeah, the type of coffee I'm drinking is not personal data exactly, but how often I drink coffee and if that relates to my eating habits or my sleep quality, it's something that I would like to share with my doctor for a limited time and not with everyone, right? So yeah, there's a big issue there, and currently we are not doing much about it. So yeah, companies, they just add the connectivity, and one way or another, using a smartphone or some gateway device, you know, you buy something new and the data goes to the cloud right away, and you can do nothing about it. They might say that, hey, you know, we give you an open API, right? So you still have access to the data, and we give you smartphone applications, and you can have graphs, and you can control the things. But you know, does this really mean that I own the data? Can I subscribe to the API and get a notification when you forward some data to a third party or you sell the data? Can I make sure that when I make a delete request to the API, the data is gone? I don't really think so, right? So I think that we all agree that IoT users should completely own and fully control the data that comes from their IoT devices. And the way to do that, the step 0, is controlling when the data leaves from the device and goes to the internet. And I'm really glad to see that a few people were mentioning here that for IoT should be intranet, and the raw data should remain inside the building, inside the house. And you should be enabled to select when you want this data to leave, right? And of course, we're having this conference, and there are like efforts and organizations and foundations about what controlling and knowing data means and how to do that. And you can find all this online, but there are many challenges to solve, and that's what I mainly want to talk about and our approach for that. So one of the issues is that by default, you buy a new IoT device, a wearable or something for your house, and it sends data to the cloud. That's how it's being built mostly. That's how the vendor decides to design it and sell it. That's a problem. Secondly, who did you trust to collect the data? Either locally or in the cloud. And how do you make sure that you share this data in a trusted way? What does trust mean? I mean, how can you sure that they are the ones that are supposed to be? It's your physician that you want to share the data. And not only just give the data, but you need to be sure that you have access to the specific data you specify and for the time that you want. And then you can revoke that access. And of course, probably there is a lack of proper legislation, but I'm pretty sure that, we live in Europe, so things are being done about it, but it's not my field to talk about. Let's go back to the first problem, the first issue, the devices. So yes, indeed, it's true that if you go to the media market or whatever store and you buy something, it connects by default through your smartphone or through Wi-Fi directly to the internet. But lately we see alternatives. Like this, for example. It's a smart watch. It's not as fancy as the Apple Watch, but more or less it has the same features. So you can track your steps, you can get notifications, it has a touch screen, it can measure your heartbeat. The cool thing about it, it's fully open source. Very cheap, 1/10 of the price of the Apple Watch, and you can actually program it, or you can find open source applications that will enable you to control when you want the data, the step data or the heartbeat data to go where. So the first point is kind of like resolved. We see that there are alternatives, and hopefully that in the near future there will be more and more vendors focusing on privacy and providing devices that we can control when the data will leave the device and go where. I won't talk about legislation, but I want to talk about what can be a trusted point for collecting the data and how to share them in a trusted way. So these are the questions that we wanted to kind of answer. So we wrote a project proposal and we got funded by the European Commission. It's called Agile. That's a URL. This is who we are. We are 17 partners, mostly from Europe. Also some big evil corporates, but also very good non-profit foundations. And we are CreateNet, the project coordinators, a non-profit research institute. So how do we want to tackle data privacy in the IoT? We are bringing all the cloud functionality inside the house on a gateway. So we want that people are able to discover the IoT devices that are in their house network, wirelessly connected or wired, and do whatever they can do with the cloud. So store the data locally and process the data and make sense of the data. How do we do that? We're building a modular IoT gateway. It's modular both in the hardware sense, so it's kind of like a Lego style that you can plug in the different wireless modules you need, so you can talk with all kinds of wireless technologies that exist for the IoT devices. You can select the type of database you want to use for storing the data. And also all the software which is open source comes into packages, into modules, so that you can completely configure and make sure it fits your requirements. You can use your own applications or download applications that allow you to process the data and make sense, visualize the data that your IoT devices generate. You can create your own apps in an easy graphical way or get apps from the community. And yes, last but not least, share the data in a trusted way. How do we do that? So I don't want to go into technical details, but we can discuss them later. We are using linked data technology and decentralized database and the blockchain. These are a few of the technologies and the open source project that we work with to enable the whole thing. So we are using Docker containers to make sure that the software elements that are installed in the gateway are completely isolated and nobody can build an application that can harm the gateway or steal data, for example, from the database. And yes, about link data, we work with Yolocom that presented also yesterday and today. We have very interesting, cool use cases from the self-tracking quantified domain with wearables to monitoring port facilities and also putting the gateway on drones and monitoring wildlife. And also we're having a very big testbed of sensors for testing the technologies that we are building if you're interested. So that's one of the partnerships. Yolocom is a startup, they are based in Berlin, and what they do is they are building a system so that you can share data with people you trust using linked data. You can ask them for more information or meet later about it, how it works. And this is not like very final yet, but we are partnering with IPDB Foundation. They are behind the Big Chain DB, which is a decentralized database for blockchain, so that we can enable the people to store the data they want to export from the gateway in a decentralized way, and also to store the link graph, the graph that defines when I share my data with someone and for how long, for example, they can have access to it. Hopefully, and the reason I'm here is that I want to find people that are interested in the project and want to work with us and partner as end users, or maybe someone who has an interesting idea for a startup. And what can you get? So everything is open source and you can use the project. You can have your Raspberry Pi device, you can take the shield we are building to make it enable to talk with different devices that you might have in your environment. And also we are building a user community. So we will be running early next year a Kickstarter campaign to provide the gateway and a bundle with the smartwatch you saw to people so they can start using it. So you can be part of it, or if you're interested to develop interesting applications, you can also join. We give seed money. We have that from the European Commission. It was a requirement for us. So if you have interesting ideas on how you can make the software or the hardware of Agile a product or a service, we will be funding up to 16 startups with 15,000 euros. And that's equity free. We just require that you make use of the technology and you kind of like promise that what you will build will reach the market at some point. Last but not least, we have partnership with Startup Bootcamp, the IoT and data division in Barcelona that are experts in incubating startups. So you can also get free mentorship from them for actually making your product or idea reach the market. How you can keep in touch? You can check our website and you can subscribe to our newsletter. We promise not to spam you. We usually send a newsletter once per 2 months. You can check our GitHub, everything is published there, even the schematics of the hardware we're building. We're still pretty young, 6 months old as a project, but we already have some components for supporting communication with wireless devices and some other elements for the software. And definitely follow us on Twitter because all the news and everything that we do is posted there. Last but not least, if you're a creative person and interested into arts, we are having a competition for artworks that will take place in Berlin next year, and we invite people to use, for example, also open data from cities and make something interactive using our technology. And yeah, that was it. Thank you.